Welcome to our Meet and Eat session for Eat Up. Really excited. I say this probably for every charity. I shouldn't have favourites, but definitely Eat Up is one of my favourites. But I'd like to start the session by acknowledging and honouring the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. So that's the Jibal and Jarrah people from around Toowoomba, where I am, and we pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. I can see Elise. Do you want to give us a wave so people see you? Excellent. So, quick overview of Eat Up. Eat Up engages volunteers to provide nutritious meals for disadvantaged children who arrive at school with no food from home. Providing these lunches for children, Eat Up aims to increase their engagement in the classroom so they can take better advantage of their learning opportunities, succeed in education and have a brighter future. So, why wouldn't you help a charity trying to do all that? Our funding is really going to support Eat Up's program in regional Queensland, which includes Cairns, Townsville, Toowoomba, Bundaberg, Gympie, Rockhampton and Maryborough. And I suppose we got 143 grants. So why Eat Up? Look, I think the selection committee took the same approach that I did, such a practical approach to the problem. Like, you really need those basic physiological needs before you can really be expected to thrive as a kid. Great use of volunteers and the community. So look, our thing is all about growing stronger communities together, and Eat Up definitely is involving the communities that they're involved with to come together to support the kids. Obviously a very growing area of need. You just have to listen to the media, the cost of living crisis. So I'm sure Elise will speak about that. They're working in the communities which we support, which is great, and we'll go through the different geographical regions that they do support. Look, and I found them to be an extremely professional and well-run organisation. So it really was a no-brainer. I think they do a great job, and really keen to introduce them to you today. So how the session will run, obviously Elise will cover Eat Up, all the amazing work that they're doing. We'll have some questions, and we'll talk a bit about the impact that the grant does achieve. We'll have heaps of types of questions, like I said, that we can unmute or put in the chat function. But like we do to all our presenters, who's Elise Cook and how did you become involved with Eat Up? You want to unmute?
There we go. Can everyone hear me okay? Firstly, before I go into that, I just want to say a big thank you to the Heritage Bank Foundation, to all of you for the support, because as Paul highlighted before, we support a lot of kids at schools, and I'll go more into more detail around our model. The support that we receive through you guys, or that we have received through you guys, is absolutely essential. We don't get any government funding, and so in order to continue doing what we do rely on this sort of support. So I just want to say a big thank you. Sorry for hijacking the conversation, but I just wanted to start with that. I'm Elise Cook. I am the CEO of Eat Up, proud CEO of Eat Up. I absolutely love this organisation and the work we do. I'm very passionate about it. I've been involved in the organisation for about 7 years now and worn many, many hats along the way. I started as a volunteer. My background is in dietetics. I was working as a clinical dietitian and then worked in community work, and then took some time off to have my kids. I've got 3 teenage daughters, and when the youngest one started kinder, I wanted to get back into the workforce properly, and but wanted to pivot direction a little bit, and was very passionate, and still am, about food insecurity. I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to help make a difference. And I happened to read an article in the newspaper about Lyndon Galea, who is the founder of Eat Up, and the work that he was doing. And he was grew up in Shepparton, and read in a local paper himself that there were kids coming to local schools there without lunch, and teachers were saying kids weren't able to concentrate, and they were being disruptive in the classroom because they were so hungry, and teachers were giving them their own food or going out and buying food with their own money. And Lyndon thought there was something simple he could do to help, and made a few cheese sandwiches in his mum's kitchen at home and delivered them. And you can imagine the response was absolutely incredibly positive, and teachers were ringing and saying, when's the next batch coming? So Eat Up really grew from there, and my involvement came in where I read this article about Lyndon and what he'd done, and I was obviously completely inspired and impressed by what he had achieved, and thought this is something I'd love to help out with. So I found his mobile number and called him, and we caught up for a coffee, and I said, hey, I've got some time, do you need a hand? And that's how I became involved in Eat Up, and it was just the two of us. Both of us were volunteers, and we just started to grow and support more schools along the way. And as I said, when it's a small organisation, and we still all do wear many hats, we probably shouldn't wear as many hats as we do, but in a small non-profit grassroots, not so grassroots anymore, but small organisations, you do just tend to just chip in and do whatever's needed. And then a couple of years ago, I ended up in the CEO position. And as I said, it's a privilege. I love it. And I love that I get to talk to people like you guys, talk about the work we do, and work together. Like we see support from organisations and foundations like Heritage Bank as partnerships. So we're working together to feed kids. Yeah, that's a part of my job that I really love. Sorry, I hope I haven't blabbed on too much and gone on to the next questions.
On that grassroots beginning, damages in his mum's parents' house. What do you look like today? So how many kids are you servicing, schools, geographical locations?
So we're currently supporting almost 770 schools across the country. So started off in a few schools in Shepparton back in 2013, and there were about 20 schools when I started in 2016, I think it was. And yeah, 770 odd around the country now. Number of kids we feed is a difficult one to articulate, and that's because we don't have access to, and you'll get a bit more of an inkling around this through the conversation, other questions, no doubt, but we don't have any interaction with the kids themselves. We provide schools with the lunches that they need, and then we really give control back to the schools and to the teachers around how they distribute those lunches, who they distribute them to. They know their kids and their community the best. We just provide them with what they need in order to support those kids as best they can. And so sometimes it's the same kids accessing the lunches every day. Sometimes it's a few kids that access them periodically when the family goes through a difficult patch, and that often ebbs and flows with the welfare payment cycle we've seen. So we don't know how many kids we're supporting. We know it's roughly 1 in 5 kids at the schools we support need our help. So we know rough amounts of kids, but we do know how many lunches go out. And we've just ticked over and delivered our 3 millionth lunch since we started. And I think at the moment we're delivering somewhere between 15,000, maybe a bit more lunches a week nationally. And we've been growing rapidly over the last couple of years. So that number I keep having to update my figures all the time. So I'm probably getting them wrong, but at last check.
Victoria, Northern Territory, Western Australia?
Yep. So we're, I missed the first half of your question because it's sort of, there's a lag with the volume, but I think you asked where we support kids, what areas around the country. Yes, thank you. So we're currently supporting kids in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, WA, and the Northern Territory. And in most of those, in all those states, we're supporting kids in metro areas, so Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth, plus multiple regional areas in those states. And then obviously in the Northern Territory, not obviously, but obvious to me, not you guys, we're supporting kids in Palmerston, so it's a regional support in Northern Territory. We're not yet in Darwin.
Okay. And can you do that for, I suppose, more centralised CBD, but you know what I mean, big city compared to the country support?
So the amount of support, did you say?
Or? I have the different models. So with the
yes,
yeah.
Sure. So about 40% of the schools we support are in regional areas and 60% in metro. And we have two models that allows us to support both these areas in slightly different ways. Our metro model, in our metro areas, we have a paid driver facilitator who runs volunteer sandwich making sessions at workplaces and some schools. And they take all the ingredients, the cheese, bread, margarine, cling wrap, gloves, everything, table covers, and they set up these amazing sandwich making sessions, which some of you may have experienced or it's still to come. Sorry, I'm not sure where we are on timelines, but set up these sandwich making sessions, and they're fast and fun, and we play music, and we also educate about the issue of food insecurity and what we're doing to help. And about 20 or 40 volunteers will make 1,000, 2,000 lunches, depending on how fast and productive they are. And that driver facilitator then delivers those lunches directly to schools in the metro area. Most likely if there's sessions early that day, they'll do it that afternoon. If not, they're refrigerated overnight and delivered the next day. And this is part of a financially sustainable model that we have. So we engage with corporates who pay for these sessions, and that payment helps us complete and create a beautiful, self-sustaining, financially sustainable model where the more sessions we run, the more sandwiches we make, the more we can fund more sessions and more sandwiches to be made and delivered. So that model's growing at the moment, which is fantastic. Both models are actually. And so that's our metro model. We have a regional model that allows us to support and reach kids in regional and remote areas that we wouldn't otherwise be able to get to with our refrigerated van and driver model. And in order to do this, we engage with incredible organisations, volunteer groups and organisations like Rotary clubs, Lions clubs. In some cases, it's a corrections facility, and in a couple of cases, it's a school. In one case, it's an army base up in Townsville, and we support those groups to lead Eat Up in their local area. So we provide them with everything that they need to make and deliver the lunches to local schools. We manage the relationships with all the schools, and we let them know which schools we're supporting, how many lunches each school needs, and every 3 weeks that group will get together and deliver the lunches. Something that, as I'm talking, I've realised I've missed that you probably are wondering is about the model and what we deliver, and why it's a 3-week delivery cycle, which, by the way, it is in both the metro and regional models. We deliver every 3 weeks. And our volunteers make cheese sandwiches, and we use, in most areas, we use Wonder White bread that is high in fibre, vitamins and minerals. And then it's a cheese sandwich that then teachers can toast up or give as a cheese sandwich when needed. And then we also, and this is mainly in the metro areas, unfortunately only at the moment, we get access to in-kind food support by the likes of Chobani. So we deliver Chobani yogurts. We've just started delivering Heinz baked beans and Messy Monkeys bars, and we also deliver fresh fruit when we get funding for it. So that's funded separately to our model. And we deliver the sandwiches and the snacks once every 3 weeks. And that's so, and the schools then freeze the sandwiches so that they've got control over how many, they have easy access to them and can give them out when they need them and not rely on a fresh batch to be delivered all the time. And that model also has allowed us to scale. So that's allowed us to support the number of kids and schools that we support. And so that's the case, as I said, with both the metro and regional, is that 3-week delivery cycle.
How are you selected? Are they approaching you? Are you approaching them? You know, is it
The schools?
Yeah. How are they selected? How do they come on board?
So there's 2 ways. We have a wait list of schools who get in touch with us through our website. They hear about us and they fill out a form. say, they need support and which area they're in. And then we go through that wait list every now and again when we're able to, when we get support, for example, like support we receive from you guys, and we're able to, grow some regional areas. We'll look at areas of need, we'll look at the wait list, and we'll marry the two together and see who we can support and where. If there's a group of schools, a cluster of schools in one particular area. We also actively engage with schools because we know that there are schools that need our support most likely but don't know about us. And so if we identify an area of need, we've got a couple of schools on our wait list, let's say, we'll then actively call schools in that area, knowing that if there are some schools in a particular area saying they need support and putting their hand up, most likely schools around the corner or in neighbouring areas may also need support. So if we're in the area and we're already running our program, we'll call around and say, hey, this is what we do. We're able to support your school. Do you need support?
Now, we've only given you a $15,000 grant. What sort of impact will that make on EDA?
Huge. So in our regional areas, I spoke before about the in-kind support that we receive. So that's very important to EDA. But a lot of that in-kind support is only accessible in our metro areas because there's various logistics obstacles to accessing, for example, Chobani yogurts in, I'll give a Queensland example, Bundaberg. So we can't necessarily, but we can access those things in main cities. That's not a great example because we aren't doing the snacks in regional areas, but it's mainly the bread, cheese and margarine that are our big expenses. And so we pay for those ingredients. We reimburse the local community groups that are supporting us by making those lunches and delivering them on our behalf. We make sure that they're not out of pocket for any of those things. So support like yours helps us be able to continue providing these groups everything that they need to run their program.
Excellent. Now, no stress though. We've probably got some people here on the line from South Australia. When South Australia coming online for EDA?
So look, we're open to supporting schools in South Australia. We're also cautious of not stepping on anyone's toes and duplicating services. So we know that there is a charity called Kickstart for Kids that operates in South Australia, and they deliver lunches. It's a different sort of model, but they do support schools with lunches. And so we are conscious of that, and we don't feel like, if someone came to us and said, hey, there's still heaps of schools here that need your support, we'll look at how we can make it happen. But our first point of call would be to contact that organisation or other organisations and say, just be upfront and talk about how we're going to meet the need together. So that's where we're at the moment with South Australia.
In regard to collaboration and not wanting to just duplicate services. So congratulations on that answer. Well done.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you. That's always something.
No, it needs to happen. Too many people try and replicate what's already out there, which we don't need. So we're just going to talk about volunteering very quickly. Obviously, we've done a volunteering session at Eagle Street, which was awesome. We made 1,000. We broke the world record. We made 1,000 sandwiches in 45 minutes. We were that good, which is sensational. We're going to do a few more of those. So I put a goal. We had a chat earlier to Elise that we're going to try and do at least 5,000 sandwiches through Eagle Street for this year. So we've got a few more sessions planned. We're looking at the regional model and where, like Toowoomba, for example, is a regional model and where people can get involved with those community groups. So hopefully get some staff involved, Bundaberg, etc., where let's find out when the community groups are. If they're open to us assisting, which I hope they will be, we'll be able to get some volunteering happening there, which is really good. And we're planning something pretty big for World Sandwich Day, which is in November. So keep an eye out for that. Any questions for Elise? So I see, Liz, they definitely do support schools in Toowoomba. Do you know what schools you support in Toowoomba off the top of your head?
No, but I can try and look it up.
No stress.
No, it's just
There's two. Got you.
Sorry, I've got some teams in Toowoomba that are keen to volunteer. So if there's an opportunity for me to get some of these guys making sandwiches, that'd be amazing.
Well, I can reach out. I can see if our regional coordinator can try and tee something up. We've got two separate local groups that help us in Toowoomba, and they share the load of the schools there. I think it's a Lions Club and a Rotary Club, or two separate Lions clubs that are operating there. So, I mean, there's always possibility to see when they're running their next session and if they're happy to have other people join and help. Usually these clubs run their sessions, well, I don't know, sometimes they do them during the day, but often they do them in the evening and then refrigerate the sandwiches and deliver them the next day. But if people are open to, you know, being flexible with hours, I'm happy to try and connect and see.
Thank you.
Something I'm happy to do for a lot of areas, Liz.
Sorry?
Where's my mic here? Yeah, definitely something I'm keen to do for a lot of areas, see if we can connect into some community groups.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I'll follow up with that and let you know what we can try and do, because that would be great. It's really when you see it hands-on and in it's, you know, it's a lot of fun, but it's also a great opportunity it's one of the few charities that where you sort of can have such a tangible, direct involvement in the end product, really. So if we can set that up, we will.
Okay, there's a question in regards to identifying areas of need, which you've touched on. Do you just mind refocusing on how do you identify that area of need? So what research do you do? But from what you said, it's more about if schools are in one area reaching out, there's probably other schools in that area as well. Yeah,
definitely. Look, at times we have, particularly earlier on, where we've had the fortunate opportunity to grow and had some funding to grow in a new state and in a new area, we've looked at socioeconomic data to sort of identify those areas of need, particularly if it's in a state where if it's, I live in Victoria, so if it's a state I don't know much about, like when we started in WA, we did a lot of research around what are the areas of need through socioeconomic data. And then we also look at something called the ICSEA, which is a measure of socio-educational advantage amongst families of kids that attend a school. And that sort of gives us a little bit of an indication around a particular school's need, not necessarily an area, but a particular school. So we do look at those factors, particularly in a new area, but to be honest, it also comes down to if schools are putting up their hands saying we've got kids coming without lunch, then they need help, they're in need. I'm not going to go cross-check any data. We're happy to support, because unfortunately these days need is everywhere. It's not as clustered and confined to certain areas as it used to be, and there are unfortunately families, you know, in even some of the wealthier areas that you would assume are wealthier areas, there are still families who are struggling. But it also, I have to say, the other thing that comes into the mix as well is practicality. And, you know, we might have schools put up their hand and say, hey, we need help, but they're not it's not, you know, there aren't any other schools potentially around there that also need help, even when we ring around, and it doesn't, unfortunately, make sense in terms of efficiency and logistics for us to set up a model around one school. In those cases, we look to see if there are other charities and things that we can connect that school to.
Great. Any more questions? No. So what I might close the session is the same sort of question I always ask. We're all going back to our desks now to do our day job. What's the one thing that you want us to keep in mind about Eat Up?
One thing is, and it's something I think I take for granted in talking about a lot of the time, and I probably missed it. I did miss it today, is that food is a basic need. And when we think about how we manage ourselves and manage our day and our work when we've accidentally or for whatever reason skipped a meal, fasting for a blood test or something, how you've just want everyone to just reflect on how they feel and how they manage themselves and what they get, what they're able to get out of their day when they're hungry. And then just imagine being a child at school and how that would impact not just their day, but if it's happening ongoing, their futures. Because if you're hungry, you can't concentrate, and if you can't concentrate, you can't learn. And that really is everything to a student at school.
Great. Look, we really appreciate your time. We love everything that you're doing with Eat Up. Our interactions with the team have been sensational. And I really look forward to at least pumping out 5,000 sandwiches for you in Eagle Street and getting some volunteering happening, hopefully in the regions with your wonderful volunteers and hopefully adding to some of that. So we really appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for joining in and look forward to seeing a lot of you next Thursday when we have a chat to backpacks for SA kids. But really appreciate your time, Elise. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, Paul, for the opportunity. Take care.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Elise. Thanks, Paul.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.